This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Frieda, North Haven's first Selectman, and welcome to our March Board of Selectmen meeting. As always, I'm joined by our second Selectman, Mr. William Piper, and our third Selectwoman, Ms. Sally Buemi. Welcome. As is customary, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask the young ladies that are here today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So let's all stand. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, every March we proclaim Girl Scout Day here in North Haven. So as part of my overview on number 6, we're just going to go through the procedural aspect of the government with the minutes and some approvals, and then we're going to honor the Girl Scouts here in North Haven with a proclamation that I'll read this evening. So before we get to that, it'll only be about 5 or 6 minutes from now, let's start with item number 2, public comments to the agenda. And Sherman, just hold for 1 second, please. I wanted to make note that we had a late phone call from our town attorney tonight. We're going to be amending the agenda, and I'm going to ask Bill Piper to do the amendments, and then Sherman will come back to you.
Thank you, Mike. The in terms of the agenda, item number 11 is being amended. And item number 11 right now is to consider and vote upon a call for a special town meeting to be held on Monday, March 25th, 2019, at what's being amended from 6:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. So that's the first amendment. And then the second amendment is going to be considered to be number 6A after the Selectmen's overview. And in that case, that is what's being added. In that case, is that what we'll discuss to be resolved, or as part of the agenda tonight, is that the Board of Selectmen authorizes the fire chief and deputy fire chief to represent the town at the Connecticut Department of Public Health hearing on the town's petition for a change in primary service area responder. And I think that's an important addition to the agenda that I think kind of relates to what we've had a lot of ongoing discussions regarding in terms of what what the situation is in terms of our primary service area contract. And Sally, you have a copy of that of 6A.
Yes,
well,
yes.
right?
So are you making a motion to make those 2 amendments to the agenda?
Yes.
So I will second both motions for the addition of 6A and the modification on item 11 as stated by the second selectman.
Very good, and we have a motion and a second under discussion. I'd just like to make mention that the DPH meeting is April 5th. I've supported the PSA. I was taking the PSA back, and tonight's amendment is based upon the fact that we have to get the amendment in place to precede the April 5th DPH meeting in Hartford. So with that being said, any other discussion on the motion or the second? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Katz.
The number 11 that was scheduled for 6:30, I remember the last town meeting, which was just a few weeks ago, we had a full house here, and you're changing it to 5 p.m. limits the number of people that might be able to attend because of work schedule. Many people work till 5.
So the reason, Sherman, is that I have to have the town engineer here that night to explain Winding Brook Road, but he has to be at a WPCA meeting, which we don't know when it's going to end. And that's why we have to put the meeting earlier.
Okay, so this might limit the number of people that are able to come to this.
Potentially. But without knowing when the WPCA meeting is going to end, we're not sure when to start the meeting after that. So this is more of a safer alternative.
I have to say I don't agree with changing the time.
Okay. So, any other?
What time is the WPCA meeting? Aren't they usually at 4?
No,
No,
they start
they
at
start-
6, but probably don't get really rolling until about 6:15, and there could be public comment there, so you don't know. So,
Okay. Well,
I mean, I'm not sure what the alternative is. I mean, it's not a lot of, there's not gonna be a lot of items on that agenda. The Winding Brook Road is a road that the town is asked to be taken over, I should say. So, Val, I mean,
maybe
that's-
it's possible we could make it 5:30 and move the Winding Brook issue to first. I mean, right now it's listed second,
well, we could do that.
you know,
I mean,
to,
do you
as
think
of,
the half-hour Sherman would make a difference? Or?
I'm just saying that there may be people that can't come because of the 5 o'clock.
All right.
And I, personally, I think the number 8 is a very important item,
About the
the
bid.
what?
about the change in
Right.
the amount from 7,500 to 25,000.
Right. That's recommended by the auditors,
I
by the way.
understand that, but I can give my reasons why I don't agree with it at the
Okay.
meeting.
So I would be willing to entertain an amendment to that motion to push the meeting back to,
To
5:30,
5:30.
right.
And then we could change the
Yeah.
order. When we read the call, we could change the order and put the Winding Brook Road, because that's going to be relatively
yes. All right.
quick.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
Yes. So I will make a motion to amend our amendment and make paragraph 11 read 5:30 instead of instead of 6:30. Okay?
Okay.
And that we switch the order of the call. We switch items A and B.
All right, so we have a motion. Bill?
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I support it also. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sherman. All right, item number 3, the approval of the minutes from the Board of Selectmen's Budget Workshop meeting of January 7th.
I'll move the approval of those minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4, the approval of the minutes of the February 7th Board of Selectmen meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so
Number 5.
number 5. The approval of the special Board of Selectmen meeting, February 11th, 2009, the minutes of that meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 6. We see all these young ladies here tonight, and as I mentioned earlier, every March, the town of North Haven acknowledges Girl Scout Day here in North Haven. So we've put together this proclamation, and if you would allow me about 2 to 3 minutes to read this proclamation, I think it's very important that we acknowledge this great organization and these beautiful children who are here today, along with their scout leaders. So here we go. The town of North Haven is proud to join in celebrating Girl Scout Day and the importance of girls' leadership development. Girl Scouts is recognized as a national leader in providing the best leadership development experience in the world for girls. Girl Scouts brings time-tested methods and research-backed programs that speak to the strength of girl leadership development, backed by more than 100 years and expertise in the field. The expertise resides in Girl Scouts and girls developing their leadership potential through activities that enable them to discover their values, their skills, and the world around them, connecting with others in a multicultural environment. Girl Scouting is continuing a legacy of creating gender-balanced leadership in the United States and the entire world. In its second century of service to girls by providing girls with the tools to become leaders, dedicated to making this country and world a better place. Girl Scouts offers hands-on, girls-led, girl-centered learning in STEM, the outdoors, and in entrepreneurship, and also in abundant opportunities in developing invaluable life skills that help girls take the lead early and often. Only Girl Scouts offers girls a one-of-a-kind opportunity to become a Gold Award Girl Scout by engaging in leadership at the highest levels while addressing an issue they feel passionately about. The Girl Scout Gold Award, the highest honor a Girl Scout can earn, acknowledges each recipient's power and dedication to not only bettering herself, but to making the world a better place for others. Girl Scouts was founded in 1912 by Juliette Gordon Low, whose life mission was to build girls of courage, confidence, and character. Through her legacy, which continues to have an extraordinary influence on the lives of millions of young girls all across the country. Today, ladies and gentlemen, more than 50 million American women are Girl Scout alumni, and 2.6 million girls and adult volunteers are active members. So today, I, Michael J. Frieda, Chief Executive of the Town of North Haven, am proud and honored to declare March 12th as Girl Scout Day here in North Haven. And the Town of North Haven and this Board of Selectmen acknowledges with overwhelming pride and enthusiasm the many girls and women of our town who dedicate themselves to the Girl Scout promise. Let's give these beautiful children a round of applause. So I'd like to present this proclamation. I'm going to step down, and I'll ask Sally and Bill if they would like to join me. And this is the proclamation that I read, which memorializes all of the wonderful efforts of the Girl Scouts of America and all of your individual efforts. Because each of you young girls represents an individual ambassador for the town of North Haven, for the way you conduct yourself, for the way you work with your fellow friends, for the respect that you show your teachers, and the respect that you show your parents and your scout leaders. And this Board of Selectmen is very proud of each and every one of you. So I present to you this proclamation.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Here we go. Oh, I can see everybody's face. Perfect.
Okay.
See you.
All right, ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I did. Thin mint's my favorite.
So cute.
Yeah. One other note on item number 6. Back in 1970, ladies and gentlemen, all across the United States was celebrated to be the first Earth Day. and that was in April of that year. In North Haven, over the past several years that I've been in office now, this is my 9th year, we've always celebrated Earth Day. Hugh Davis has been a leader for us in terms of promoting the event. And I'd like to just turn it over to Valerie for a second to announce the details of Earth Day, which will be Saturday, April 6th. Valerie?
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Earth Day will be April 6th at 10 a.m., and it will be at the North Haven High School, 221 Elm Street. It is sponsored by the North Haven Conservation Commission, and along with them, they have help from Project Green students. It's a fun-filled and informative event, and there will be food trucks, numerous activities, and these activities are designed to appeal to children of all ages, and they'll be including a scavenger hunt and some great prizes. So they'll also have more than 40 local area civic groups, as well as businesses and local and state agencies will also be there exhibiting and providing information and demonstrations, and they'll have lots of giveaways. And it is a free event, so everyone is welcome, and please stop in. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. All right, so items number 7, 8, I'm going to ask Bill and Sally to read. We have Andy Bevilacqua, our town engineer here, who will explain the resolution that we're going to be kicking to the town meeting or sending to the town meeting regarding Winding Brook Road. So, Bill and Sally, please.
Number 7. To consider and vote upon whether to refer to the town meeting for its approval based on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, an amendment to Section 32-9 of Article 5 of the Finance Ordinance at Chapter 32 of the Ordinances of the Town of North Haven to increase the value of contracts requiring public bid as authorized by Town Charter Section 406A from $7,500 to $25,000, which proposed amendment is on file and available for inspection in the office of the town clerk.
Okay.
So
So I'm going to ask Andy to come up, Andy will
he's
come up
later.
afterwards. So now we'll move to the resolution that we've talked about during the public comment to the agenda. Mr. Katz raised the issue. This has been recommended by the town auditors and memorialized by the Board of Finance. So tonight's meeting is simply to send it to the town meeting for a vote. So can we read item number 8?
Yes. Item number 8, resolved to refer to the town meeting for its approval based upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance, an amendment to Section 32-9 of Article 5 of the Finance Ordinance at Chapter 32 of the Ordinances of the Town of North Haven to increase the value of contracts requiring public bid as authorized by Town Charter Section 406A from $7,500 to $25,000.
Okay, well, I'll second the motion as read, but I think we should have some discussion about it. This was discussed at the
Board of Finance.
the last Board of Finance meeting, but as you often say, more folks watch the Board of Selectmen meeting than any other meeting. So, I will be interested to hear what folks have to say about it. My question at the Board of Finance, you might recall, was more in line with, how many, what percentage of our bid contracts would this impact? I was more interested in knowing, was this being done for an ease of administration just because of the volume, or is it being done because the sense is that the bid process is not necessary for contract values under $25,000. So, will we be hearing from someone from the auditor at the town meeting? I mean, they're the ones that recommended it. Maybe they should be there to say exactly why.
The auditor's
that might
already been
help.
on, the auditor's already been on TV. This is not something that we thought of, ladies
No,
and
I
gentlemen.
know, that's why I'm
This
saying.
is something that was recommended to us because most governments have a higher threshold, and from what the auditor explained was that as every year, as towns and cities grow, that there's a mechanism in place to raise the bid process. For North Haven, the thing that struck me, the thing that was of great interest to me, was that we'd be saving a lot of money on advertising, which really cost the town a great deal of money by advertising every single bid. Now, Ed Swinkowski said he didn't think there were that much, there was a difference, yes. But a lot of times, the bid process requires us advertising in newspapers, which is very expensive. If we just were able to advertise perhaps online and save all those dollars, and this was kind of the auditor's point, that you need to have a higher threshold on the bid, not only to save money, but to allow the government to execute a little bit more swiftly and efficiently. So this is the recommendation to us from an auditor who handles a lot of cities and towns across Connecticut. Not something we're coming up with, it's recommended to us. So that's why we're staying in accordance with the rules and regulations of the government, sending it to a town meeting.
Well, as you might recall, at the Board of Finance meeting, I was pretty much satisfied with Mr. Swinkowski's
Right.
responses to my questions. I'm certainly not sitting here right now objecting to it. I just, wanted to reiterate what my concern was at the Board of Finance, and Mr. Swinkowski addressed it. I'm certainly, I already seconded the resolution, so I'm not sitting here opposing it, but since it was, to your point, since it was recommended by the auditor, are you saying did they talk about it at their annual audit report before the Board of Finance?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay,
Yeah,
I might have
I remember-
drifted.
I remember
to the
that
point
as
of
well.
That was a
That was
long
something
one.
that came up in the discussion.
Right. Yeah, that's when
Okay.
it was recommended to us.
All right,
at
well,
that meeting.
then, like I said, folks will have their opportunity to address the issue, but I just thought that it was prudent to talk about it a little bit right now. And again,
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it, but I do understand why some folks might have issues with it. You could say, yes, you're saving money on legal ads, but maybe you would be saving more money by sending something out to bid. That might be what people argue. I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Well, no, I think the key
Yeah.
word is public bid. That doesn't prohibit us from getting bids. So the
Right.
public bid process is actually very onerous and very complicated in terms of, actually publicizing the bid and actually coming up with a formal document to submit bids.
Right.
That doesn't stop anybody from saying, well, it's a $15,000 item, and I'm going to call 3 suppliers and give me your bids.
Well, yeah, we're still gonna do that.
See, so, yeah.
I'm glad you brought
See,
that
so
up, yes.
that's the difference between a public bid versus getting bids.
Right.
Where,
And so if it's not noticed, how will folks know to
Well,
make
you know, I
it
mean, how-
from the internet, you're saying?
No, we would make calls. We do
Oh,
that a
okay.
lot.
I mean,
Okay.
suppliers, people who are, provide service contracts or software or whatever, you end up having, in most companies, how do you find, find suppliers for, for software or internet services, or, we've made some changes recently. We actually used, one of the subsidiary of Johnson Controls recently in my company, and how we found them was because they're in the business that we needed them for what they did for us. But before we did that, I know we shopped around and found other bids. So I think that's the key here, is to
Okay, well,
to
Mr.
realize it's
Swinkowski,
just the public.
Mr.
Yeah,
Swinkowski could, again, guys, I'm not
No, I just wanted to
being against
clarify
this,
that.
yeah.
And
But-
I think you're bringing up the point, we're not going to, go out and shop, but that doesn't stop us from shopping. It
Right,
just
and I
stops us
think
from
those
going
are
through.
important points to be made at the town meeting, and so we've sort of set the stage for
Yeah.
that discourse. And so, as I said, I've seconded the resolution, and we've discussed it, so.
Okay, so we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Just as a point, we added to the agenda, but should we also, and maybe I'm off base here, in terms of item 6A, to go back and actually read that resolution, second it, and approve it, or did we, I think we just approved it for adding it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
Whoops,
we gotta go back.
yes, all right.
So I'll go back and add.
I'll make a motion to go back to 6A.
Go back to, we did 7 and 8. The item we added to the agenda was item 6A, which I'll read now for actually, before we read it solely, I think, to add it to the agenda. Now we're
Right.
going to actually add it, now we're actually going to read it to make a motion and then hopefully second and approve it. So I'll make a motion for item 6A then. Resolve that the Board of Selectmen authorize the fire chief and deputy fire chief to represent the town at the Connecticut Department of Public Health hearing on the town's petition for change in primary service area responder.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
All right, item number 8. I'm sorry, item number
Nine.
9.
I think. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'll read 9. To consider and vote upon whether to refer to the town meeting for its approval based upon the recommendation of the town engineer, acceptance of Winding Brook Road as a road of the town of North Haven.
Okay, Andy? This is Andy Bevilacqua, who's been with us since September 24th. Over 30 years in engineering, and at one time was once the town engineer for a short while.
That is correct.
Before Jonathan
That is
Bodwell
correct.
was hired. So Andy,
Excellent.
welcome.
Thank you. So this is Winding Brook Road, which is I think it's a 6-lot subdivision. It's been in the works for quite a while. I've been trying to work closely with the developer to get him to the point where, he's met all of our requirements. We had a lengthy punch list that we had to work through to get the construction to the point where, we'd be satisfied that it's acceptable. A lot of rework had to be done out there to get to that point. They scrambled at the very end of the paving season last fall to get the final course of asphalt down and the pavement striping and all the signage that was required. And at this point, I'm satisfied that that the road meets our town road standards. I think 5 out of the 6 lots in the subdivision are already occupied. The houses have already been sold. There's 1 lot that remains in the subdivision.
Any questions for Andy? Residents are on board with this too. They
Yep.
want the town to take it.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The town's already maintaining the road as we normally do. We required a bond of the developer to kind of keep them on the hook until all the houses were built and all, so. But there's a lot of issues surrounding, agreements and easements and a homeowners association that was created for the development. So we've worked through all those details and all the legal stuff's in order as well, so.
Okay.
Andy will be back at the town meeting, as we talked earlier before Andy arrived. So tonight, again, is just simply to send it to a town meeting. All right, so can we?
Number 10, we have
Number
to read
10.
the resolution.
Yes.
Resolve, I'll read it. I'll move resolve that the Board of Selectmen refer to the town meeting for its approval the acceptance of Winding Brook Road as a road of the town of North Haven with the recommendation of the town engineer.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the resolution and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 11.
Number 11 is to consider and vote upon a call for a special town meeting to be held on Monday, March 25th, 2019, at 5:30 PM in the upstairs conference room number 1 of the North Haven Memorial Town Hall, 18th Church Street, North Haven, Connecticut, to consider and act upon the following. A, to consider and vote upon the acceptance of Winding Brook Road as a road of the town of North Haven with the recommendation of the town engineer. And B, to consider and vote upon whether to adopt an amendment to section 32.9 of Article 5 of the Finances Ordinance, Chapter 32 of the ordinances of the town of North Haven, to increase the value of contracts requiring public bid is authorized by Town Charter Section 46A from $7,500 to $25,000.
I'll second the call as read by the second select.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the call. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next.
The bond release, item 12. This, again, pertains to Winding Brook Estates. It is bond release P13-17, Winding Brook Estates, 19-51 Patton Road. Release the entire bond balance in the amount of $65,000 with the recommendation of the town engineer and the Planning and Zoning Commission, contingent upon formal town acceptance of Winding Brook Road by the town's legislative body at town meeting. So I'll move that bond release with that condition of acceptance.
All right, motion, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 13. Bill?
As normally is the case on the agenda, I'll make a motion to accept the property tax refunds that are listed.
Second?
Okay, motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen is here on Thursday, April 4th at 7 p.m. Item number 14, public comment. Mr. Katz, yes.
Sherman Katz, Sherwood Drive. The parking lot that was built where the Knights of Columbus was back here, can you tell me who designed it and approved the design?
Well, that was, Andy was here, he could have commented on that also. Because it was a steep grant, we had certain state requirements and that we had to meet. So went out to bid from what I recall, and I don't remember exactly who did it, but Andy was managing the project, and it was based on input with the town engineer, with the expertise of the engineers who designed it, with some input from some of the businesses on the corner, with the fire department's input, with the police department input, and with the library input.
Because I noticed that there's several very large grass areas that are out there, that because of those, we lost 14 parking spaces. Was that by design, or was it an accident?
Actually, in the end, when we complete the whole interior block here, we'll be adding spaces, Sherman, so, because the next phase is...
No, but what they did was they created large grass areas where there could have been parking. So now you have to maintain those areas. You have to send your public works out there to feed it, cut, trim it, and all that. And I'm just curious if that was the plan.
That was the plan, yes.
It was the plan.
That was the plan,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, just want to say that it's the right of every citizen to speak his mind as long as he's respectful. It's the obligation of every citizen in town to watch out for what's going on in this town with their neighborhood, with their families, with our government. And if you don't vote, if you don't get involved, don't complain. That's very important. I read the article about recyclables, where we no longer have a profit, we have a deficit. And I have a crazy question. I see the trash truck go around collecting the trash. Then I see later on a second trash truck going around collecting the recyclables, putting them in the same trash trucks, same kind of trash trucks. Why do we do a double run, one for trash, one for recyclables, which means a double the miles, double the manpower? Why can't we just put all of the recyclables in the trash at the first pickup?
Well, we can't, and I'll try to explain. I thought I explained this one other time, but first of all, we're shorthanded on recyclable manpower right now. So in certain parts of the town, trash is being picked up first before recyclables, with guys out who got hurt in the ice storm. So normally what you would see, Sherman, is that the recyclables are picked up first in one truck, and then the sanitation guys come and pick up the sanitation perhaps a couple of hours after. In some parts of the town, the western part in particular, it's the trash being picked up first, and then the recyclables, those same guys are coming back later because the manpower is short on the recyclables. The reason, however, that there's generally two trucks when we're staffed with equal manpower, when we're up to speed on manpower, is that the sanitation trucks go to Wallingford. That is a transfer station there. That's the Covanta transfer station. We don't send recyclables there. They go somewhere else. So you can't put recyclables in the same truck while they're collecting trash. If the trash truck becomes, let's say there's a recyclable truck down, once the sanitation is deposited in Wallingford and it's empty, then you can go around with that same truck afterwards and pick up the recyclables. Maybe that's what you're seeing.
Well, if we have to pay to dump $75 a ton the recyclables, that seem to be going into normal trash. They're not being used to recycle.
No, they are being used to recycle. I mean, so
Then why don't we get paid for it?
well, I've thought I've spoken about this several times.
I understand about China
Yes,
and all
right.
that.
So
but-
there's no.
So where are the recyclables going? If they're not going to go into burning for energy, where
That-
are they storing these in this country or in the ocean?
That's a very good question, and that's why, because those repositories are so scarce now, that the people who take the recyclables from us are having a tough time. They're traveling to further distances wherever they go. So now, what was once a commodity for us in terms of being able to sell it, now becomes, in a sense, I don't want to say a liability, but it becomes a cost liability for us, because not only us, we're budgeting, I think, $100,000 this coming year for disposing it. The cities, the urban areas, are $500,000, $600,000. So the simple answer is that the repositories have declined. China is no longer a destination. So now that they've shrunk the number of places where the recyclables can go, that mean the cost is going up. Now, folks, just so you know, I deal with this on a regular basis. I may have said it before, I know I did. I'm chairman of the Covanta board. I'm tied in with the state, with all the different repositories. In fact, as Val knows, I have a 9:15 call tomorrow morning, a conference call with the other mayors to discuss this very issue. But there is no solution for any of the 169 cities and towns right now on this issue, other than to try to calculate what the incremental costs, Sherman, are going to be.
Can we burn that? Can we burn the recyclables?
Well, because
Burn to energy. I'm not talking about burn to make fires.
Well, there's a state mandate on single stream recycling, so I think that may have to start at the state level in terms of changing this.
Do they dictate the amount that we have to recycle, or do they say we have to recycle? Do they say we have to recycle a percentage of our waste?
The DEEP as a suggested amount in terms of the number of households that should be recycling.
Well, all right, I don't want to belabor this, but I think we should look into trying to put everything together into one collection and burn the whole thing for energy, because we're just losing money with the second collection.
But, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but you have to understand something. We don't burn the product,
No,
so we can't control that, Sherman.
but I'm asking you, as
The
a
state-
representative, as a leader in the trash collection in this state, to see if that would fit.
Thank you for that designation, by the way. A leader in the trash collection across the state.
Well, Mike, listen, you're in charge of everything else. You may be able to be in charge of trash.
I like that. We'll have to add that.
I have it on the list now.
I've been
Yeah.
appointed
Sherman-
as the leader of trash collection across the state, Bill.
So the key
On
thing
your
that
way to
Mike
the
said,
bar.
though, is that we need a legislative change in Hartford.
I agree with you,
You can't-
but you don't get the legislative change unless you get people like Mike in his position to push it.
Right. No,
So it's
But,
your
you know,
job.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
to find a better way.
169
Your job is to find a better way to run this town.
But let me explain, Sherman, that, I often get into these conversations and end up saying things like, I'm part of this, I'm part of that. And I'm part of a lot that's really protected and benefited North Haven with all of these affiliations that I'm chairman of or vice chairman of. And as the soon-to-be president of Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, we are actively, as an aggregate group, talking about this issue.
Are we?
Oh, yes.
So you are pushing things like this?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Because let me explain, and this is a very important point. If our tipping fees right now on municipal waste deposits are X, and the tipping fees become X plus on recyclables, then it would benefit every city and town just to burn it, like you're saying, because we'd end up saving money at that point.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the tipping fees rise on the recyclables that are higher than the sanitation, because at that point, then it becomes not cost-effective to do it. It's going to cost us more money.
But you're paying more money
Yes.
to collect separately. And we also have a recycling center here, and I love it. Bring all my cardboard down there.
Yeah, but even with that, Sherman, that's a very good point, but we still have to pay to get rid of that, though.
Yeah.
So all the, one of your friends, Bob worked there, right, as you know.
Yeah.
So, Bobby Marati and that group down there, they do a great job in sorting it, throwing it in the bins, but then the town has to pay to remove it.
Well, Bobby had to quit that job because, on the compactor, there's a button. He had to push it so many times, his finger's shorter.
So that was the reason. I didn't realize that, because I saw Bob recently, so.
All right, I get off
Just-
this.
Sherman, just to note too, like in my part of town at least, we've always had again, I think maybe for Mike's explanation was the first time I've actually heard that, where we've always had a separate recycling truck that picked up the recyclables, separate from the dump truck that picked up the trash.
Not always. How long have you been
No,
in this
no,
town?
on my street, that's always been the case.
How long have you been in the town?
Since 1984.
I've been here for 50 years.
So I've always had a separate
And the
truck.
recycling only started,
Well, that's true.
25, 30 years ago.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
So I've been
Yeah.
here as
Yeah.
long as I've done recycling too, but we've always had a separate truck to pick up my recyclables in the green container.
And we made money on that.
Right,
did.
but again, but I think maybe, it sounds like in some cases, maybe they get double duty out of the dump truck,
Yeah, there could be,
where they don't have enough separate recycling trucks. I
because the truck could be in the shop, as an
Right.
example, being repaired.
think
So
that's what Truman was referring to.
That's exactly what I think
Where he
he's
was
referring to, right?
making a double trip, and in my case, they are two separate
Right.
trucks.
Anyway, Sherman,
Two
go right
separate,
ahead, go
okay.
right ahead.
Get off that one. Okay, I want us to preface this by saying I am not an expert in fire suppression, nor am I an expert in medical services. My expertise is in several other areas, and I'm not criticizing, nor am I trying to micromanage the fire department. I am after full disclosure and transparency, so I'm asking questions. First question is, we had a town meeting where we voted upon a $750,000 purchase. And at the town meeting, one of our residents got up and mentioned a grant that was applied for a truck, and why we're not waiting a couple of weeks to find out about that. And that was almost ignored and brushed aside. So it appears to me that you have authorized, or you are authorizing, the purchase of 2 fire trucks. One from our fund balance of $750,000, and one from a grant. And we're not getting one. We may get 2. Now,
Well-
and if that's not true, why didn't we wait for the grant information?
Well, it's 2 separate vehicles, so.
So it is true that you're in favor of the 2 vehicles?
Well, because the vehicles, one is down, one is not even working right now, the maintenance costs. First of all, sure, the town meeting.
I'm not
approved it.
criticizing, I'm just saying,
Yes,
you
we need
you
the
are
2
you
vehicles,
are in
right.
favor of purchasing 2 new vehicles.
One that the town meeting authorized, at
And one with the,
One that.
because it's not just the $750,000 that you pay for a vehicle. You have to insure it and register it and run it and maintain it and so on and so on. So it gets to be quite a bit of money, but as long as you say
Yeah,
you authorize the 2 vehicles.
There was always a recommendation from the fire department and the commission for 2 vehicles. Early on, we weren't sure which one we would bring to the town meeting to come out of the fund balance, and we ended up with the one that was voted on a week and a half ago. And then Paul, all along, has said he's filing and applying for a grant for the second vehicle, and that's what he's doing.
Okay. And the other is, and it sounds a little crazy. Is there a plan, or is there an agreement to hire 2 or more additional firemen every year for the next several years until we get 8 or 16?
So every year, in this budget that you'll see when I present in April, will include 2 more firefighters to start in January.
Beyond the 2 that we just put on?
Yes.
So we are hiring 2 more for next budget?
We're going to be proposing 2 in the budget.
In the budget, yeah.
And they'll start, the proposal you'll see will include 2 additional firefighters, not starting in July, but starting in January, to help
Okay.
us manage the cost a little bit better and phase it in that way.
So, and we're not going to go for a safer grant, right?
Well, I'm being lobbied on this from
Well,
one
I
or 2
understand.
members of the Board of
And I
Finance.
agree with your reasoning on that.
So understand this, Sherman, and this I think you'll agree with me. My goal is to have no tax increase this year, starting in July. That's what I'm striving for. We're not there yet in terms of presenting a budget to show that. And to give you some inside baseball here, if I can use a sports analogy, that right now, if I had to present a budget tonight, it would show $0.33 increase. And I don't want to show $0.33 increase. So I'm doing everything I can to get this down to a no tax increase. So with the SAFER grant, where I'm being lobbied by one or two members of the Board of Finance, is to get it all done right now, because the reimbursement on the SAFER may be 75%, let's say, in the first year. But then in 4 years or so, we have the full
We have
cost of it.
100%.
And the plan that I'm going to outline at the budget meeting is a plan to allow us to plan it in a sequential fashion, which allows us, and allows me in particular, to calibrate what's happening at the state level in terms of teacher pension reallocations to the municipalities, municipal aid potentially being cut back, because that's a big unknown right now. And, you know, we grew the grant list significantly this year, the largest in the region. The problem is that with some of these potential cutbacks or reallocations, and the teacher pension is one of them, you know, the money that we're growing the town with by bringing new businesses in, which I spend a great deal of time on, could potentially be eaten away by some of the, either the clawbacks from the state or the reallocations from the state in certain areas, Sherman.
Well, I'm not happy with what our new governor is doing either, so just put that in your pocket. And
You also have the issue with property tax on autos.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother
actually,
thing.
if
That's
his
even
proposal
another-
goes through, our property tax on autos will go down here from 32 mils down to, I think, 25 is what he's proposing.
Let me take you a little
Except it
bit.
would go the wrong
But
direction.
we won't get it back
No.
in
Well, we
the
don't know.
distribution. We'll lose it.
So let me explain that, because it's a great point. The proposal is a 17 to 19 mill rate across the state on car tax, where every municipality would lose the car tax. For us, it's $7 million. So think about this, you know, and I go back to my corporate days as CEO, cash flow, $7 million worth of cash flow out the door here. The state will collect it all and then determine to whom it will be reallocated to at a maximum of 17 or 19 mils. So even if we got a 19 mil reimbursement rate, we'd still lose about $2.8 million in revenue. You know what that means, Sherman? And this is not just Mike Frieda talking this is every mayor and first selectman
Right.
across the state. How do you make it up? You have to raise the mill rate to make it up. So, and then on top of that, the state wants to tax all of the residents 1 mil in property tax. A 1 mil rate increase in conjunction with this. So in other words, you'd pay a municipal mill rate, and then you'd pay the state another 1 mil in taxes.
And North Haven won't have to go after those people that are legally registered out of
That's
state.
exactly right.
It'll be the state's responsibility.
So then what you're saying is that if that happens, you're taking me off the hook then, Sherman?
Absolutely, Mike. And I'll put that in writing. Thank you for your.
All right, Sherman, thank you. All right.
When would you force, you know, it remains to be seen. I would doubt that this would pass. I don't know.
Well-
What would the timing? I think it would be years down the line. It still would hurt the town, but I think it might be years to put it in, administer it. You know, you just can't immediately effectuate such a
Well-
dramatic change. But, you know, and to your point about state aid, I was looking at, I'm sure you get the same information from Connecticut Conference Municipalities that I get. And, you know, the Government Finance and Research Office issued budget impacts for each town based on the governor's proposal. And we actually do fairly well. If you look at the chart that they gave us, we're actually improving about almost 694,000. So it's hard to, it's in flux, I acknowledge that.
So
But-
can I comment on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
have you seen this?
Well, of course,
Yeah.
I helped put it together, because it's
Okay.
CCM, so.
Okay.
So I want to let you know that the way this works at the state level, what Sally's referring to is the governor's preliminary budget, which shows North Haven getting a little more money, which is a good thing, right? But what it doesn't show is the subtraction out of the teacher's pension. And over a 3-year period here in North Haven, that's $1 million we've got to come up with, ladies and gentlemen. In other words, the municipalities have to pay 25% of the teacher's pension. Now, I can go on in this and give you tremendous granular detail, but I'll spare you on that. And this is another reason, Sherman, why all these organizations I'm involved with, regionally and the state level, give us a good position here in North Haven, because we're able to be part of information that helps North Haven or potentially prevents North Haven from being hurt. So now, the way this process works at the state level is that the governor's budget is not the budget that's going to be passed. There's iterations, the House of Representatives, the Senate. So we are using these numbers that Sally just referenced here for the April hearing. We will be having a referendum on or about May 21st. There could be a change in these numbers when the General Assembly votes on the budget, and we would have already passed a budget. The Achilles heel for not only us and every other municipality is that we go to market with a mill rate, so to speak, to use a corporate term. We're going to market with a mill rate. What happens if we find we're going to lose $2 million after we pass a referendum, which is a possibility as this budget goes through its iterations? That's one of my big concerns right now.
Yeah, that's always the case. I mean, we always have to give our best estimates, and that's one of the unfortunate problems with how the state does their budgeting versus when we as municipalities have to do ours in order to get the bills out in time. It was a problem when I was on the Board of Finance 30 years ago. It's still a problem today that they don't try to line it up better for us. But the reason why I printed this was, you might recall 2 years ago, the governor always gives the initial budget proposal or in February, and we know it's going to change. But a couple of years ago, this impact statement was very bad for us, and so we were really struggling, if you recall, 2 years ago. So that's why I felt a little bit of optimism. I know you had painted some negative pictures at the Board of Finance meeting, and when I received my information from CCM, it was a little more uplifting than some of the negative initial estimates that we've seen in the past that really made us gulp, Right. And I thought that, where did you get that million figure? I thought that our teachers' contribution rate was in the $159,000 range per year.
It doubles the second year.
It doubles
and
the
then
second
it doubles
year.
in the third year. So
Okay.
the aggregate sum of the three is.
Okay,
over
I was
$9.
just they only had provided me with the first year figure,
Right.
which was 159 and 14.
Sherman.
I just want to react to something you said. And this is something I don't like, and no one in town would like, and I know you don't like because we've discussed this before. But in the event that we underestimate what we get from the state, and we have a shortage, you can put in a special tax mid-year.
Oh, I'd hate to do that.
Which is
but
a
yes,
terrible thing to do.
It is, but you're right.
To have to do.
We have that
But
option.
But you have that salvation.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if this is still legal, but I remember one town, they put a special tax on commercial only.
Yeah. Sherman, to your point, I've always avoided that, but yet this past year, several municipalities did do that.
Yeah.
A special tax, and guess when it happened? Around Christmas time. Imagine that. I would never do that. I would do everything I could to avoid that.
It's a tough thing.
Yes, it is.
Well, their crystal ball wasn't as good as ours has been, because in the 6th year, I'm in my 6th year on the Board of Selectmen, we've done pretty well in our predictions, and in fact, I can only remember 1 year where we got less than we anticipated, and it was 50,000 less. And generally we get quite a bit more, especially with the ECS grant last. We got about 500,000 more than we had budgeted for, and that's the key. You have to measure what we received versus what we budgeted for, and so I think that we've been fairly successful, despite a couple of years ago, the very gloomy predictions and accurately
Yeah.
predicting where we didn't have a situation like Mr. Katz is referring to, where we had to,
So.
we were able to recoup that, we were able to eat that $50,000 loss
Right.
fairly easily, and
So, you make a good point, and you just created a thought that I want to share with you,
Okay.
and Bill, and the audience, and those watching. So, there are times when you hear me or see me say that I can guarantee the top-line revenue is going to grow in this town. And I can make that statement, because I've said it before, because I'm involved personally with every single development project in the town, which means I know what's happening, I know what is coming, and I know what's coming years from now because of my involvement. But when it comes to this, you may hear me present a little bit more of the negativity, and I do that purposely so that you as citizens understand what the downside risk is going to potentially could be. You need to know that there is a negative aspect to some of these things happening on the state. You'll never hear me talk about, well, I'm not sure what we're going to do in growing the grand list. No, we're going to grow the grand list, because yours truly is involved with every project, with developers, national developers, regional developers, and local developers. On a first name basis with everybody, I know it's coming. But on this, we can't control this, folks, because there's too many possible changes that could happen. So for me to say, well, hey, we're going to make $600,000 more, that creates a level of anticipation in each one of you. You need to know what the possibilities are on the downside. And that's why on these issues, I tend to reflect a little bit more of a negative view in terms of what could happen. I think it's important that you know that, and that's why I do it. So what am I saying? Sometimes you may see a contrast in Mike Frieda. He's very positive on these issues, but why is he presenting some of the negatives here? Because of all the affiliations I'm involved with, I have the inside information as what potentially could happen. And it's my job to present to you what I think could possibly happen from what I'm hearing at COST, at CCM, at COG, all these organizations that I'm leading right now. You need to know it, and that's why I share it with you. Okay.
I was happy to see the 1.4 million in for MRSA. You know how I love talking about MRSA.
That could get cut, though. We don't know.
Well, you and I had a very contentious argument about this 2 years
We
ago,
never
and you
have
left it out.
contentious
Yeah, we
arguments.
did. We did. You left it out. You shouldn't have left it out. We got it, didn't
All right.
we? Okay.
Bill, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, another way to look at it more positively is that, I think we get about $5 to $6 million from the state. MRSA maybe aside, which is only 5 or 6% of our budget. We have a $100 million budget now. So it does make a big difference. But we're very lucky that we're not more dependent on the state. I mean, if we were more dependent on the state like so many other municipalities, with all this uncertainty, I mean, you all read the newspaper like I do. You can see all these huge shortfalls that other municipalities have because they're so dependent on somebody else supporting it. And that's why I think it's much more important, as Mike said, that we focus on what we can control and what we do control, to the top line growth to bring in and grow the grand list. Because I think we have to really be cautious that that the state is really, even though they only fund us to 5 or 6% of the budget, are not going to be a dependable partner maybe in the future. Especially the other thing that the governor's talked about is going on a bonding diet or whatever, in terms of not helping or providing bonding aid to towns, which has huge impacts to many municipalities. And some municipalities have had to bond their way out of deficits, so we're very lucky that we're not that dependent on the state. So I think it's very important that, what everything Mike does to grow the grand list and create more tax revenue by having more businesses and activities in the town that generate revenue is, just as important as anything in terms of not being dependent on the state.
But some great questions tonight, Sherman. It sparked some good provocative discussion, and I hope that through the questions that you asked, through our answers and adding a little bit more granular detail, maybe the citizens watching maybe have a more comprehensive understanding as to what's going on right now. So,
And I think we've been focusing on revenue sources here, and, your efforts to grow the revenue with economic development and the revenue from the state. But the other side of the ledger is the expenditure budget. So, I think we need to address, put more effort into trying to control spending as well, because you just can't only focus on the revenue half of the budget. You also, I think, we have to look very closely at the expenditure side of the budget, and that's,
Well, it's
so we'll wait and see when the budget comes out.
So that's exactly what we're doing. That's
Right.
kind of what I was referring to. Now, the Board of Ed has come in with a 2.9% increase. That's about 1.5 million right there.
Right.
And I've often, you've heard it because you've been part of as a member of the audience, the Board of Finance meetings, and Bill's been in these meetings also as a member, not as a member in the past as a member, but as a viewer here, that, we've done a lot here. We've improved the town a great deal. We've built the firehouses. We built the middle school. But, a lot of the incremental expense in this budget is debt service that's starting to hit. So, okay, let's
Right.
move on, all right?
Yeah, fine.
Yes, is that Al back there?
Yeah, that's me.
Al, I didn't recognize you with the new growth there. How have you been?
Good, yourself? You haven't changed.
Thank you.
Al Warren, Charles Court. Just to comment on what you said and what Mr. Katz said, Public Act 1447, okay, exempts a portion of the state teachers' retirement system income, okay? In 2015, they got 10% off on their income tax. In 2016, it went to 25%. This year, it was frozen. It's supposed to go, but in 2017, it was supposed to go to 50%. What I'm asking you is, with the money they're just saying they're going to take from the cities and towns to pay a teacher's pension, should we have a say in what they, everybody else pays an income tax. I pay it, you pay it.
Right.
Who else, give me another public employee that gets a break on their income tax.
So Al, just restate your question again, because, you asked the question. I had one interpretation, because it's something we're doing now at a regional and state level, but I want to make sure I understand your question.
Yeah.
Can you restate the question, please?
Well, what the question is, with the money that they're going
Yes.
to take from
Right.
the cities and towns, in what he's suggesting is 20%, I think? Is it?
25.
25%. So now when he builds that money up in the teacher's pension, is he going to give them back the 50% off on their income tax?
Oh, that we don't know. I don't know that.
Shouldn't the cities and towns have a say in that?
Well, potentially yes, or possibly yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but that's a good question, and we don't have that answer. That's something only I think they know.
Between
and
the state and the
Yes.
union.
Right.
Another question I got
Yes,
for you.
sir.
And I
The five-
think one of the things too is I know that maybe that was given to them, and I may not be completely right because of, I think they have mandatory contributions themselves to their pension, so.
It's been frozen. It's been frozen the last couple of years because of the
Yeah.
budget.
I think you kind of said that, so
Yeah.
it may be related more to that than us. We're really helping the state out. I think that maybe helps them out individually because of their contribution versus,
On top of what
Right.
you're going to be paying their pension, but you're also going to be negotiating their salaries also. So, the other question I got, Defco Park, the fire.
Yes.
The fire chief said that the personal protective clothing and stuff that was damaged in the fire was at almost $500,000, right?
About 550. Yes.
$500,000. What, has anything been done about that?
We have a claim in with the company.
Good.
And
That's-
and also a claim in with the insurance company.
Because, I'm going by what I read in the paper.
Yes.
I didn't go down and look at the fire reports or anything like that, but there was a problem there.
Yes, we know that.
Three
You're-
problems,
You're
really.
absolutely right.
A lot of, I
In
think
which
there's-
they were, I think, were negligent.
So we have 2 claims in.
Yeah, okay, great,
Right.
thank you.
Good seeing you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I had asked the fire chief about that at the last fire commission meeting, so obviously we're pursuing our own insurance for quicker reimbursement, because we had to pay out that money.
Right.
But, you know, I think the town's insurance company will be seeking subrogation. That might take a while, based on the complexities of, you know, what happened. So that's not really for us to deal with. That's.
All right, any other
Yep.
questions? So, all right, hearing none, a motion to adjourn.
So,
Oh,
Ms. White?
Mary White, Summer Lane. Okay, I just wanted to give some highlights of the Fire Commission meeting. So they met on Tuesday, February 26th, and now, okay, the year-to-date alarms is 697, and so that represents 56 more alarms than 5 years ago in 2014. Since the last Board of Fire Commission meeting, the fire department provided ALS intercepts, where our paramedic went to the hospital on 12 different occasions. There were 20 responses to the highway. 67% of the calls were EMS related. Since the last meeting, there have been 5 incidents where the fire department experienced a delay in response to a motor vehicle accident or to a medical incident. There were 6 incidents where motor vehicle accidents or medical incidents where the fire department had no apparatus available to send, which means an ambulance responded solo. 352 incidents occurred since their last meeting. 91 incidents were overlapping, which accounts for 25% of the alarms. The budget last year, 74%. They're now at 73.8%. So there was a discussion relative to the protective vests and helmets that is included in the budget for $24,000. I guess some residents had questioned the wisdom of this, so I think it's important to, talk about that. So Deputy Martis explained in May 2018 the NFPA, which is the fire department standards. They released the NFPA 3000, which is the active shooter hostile events, and it was a response guide on how the fire department will now take a more aggressive role in entering these areas. So with a hostile scene or an active shooter scene, the FD will now go in and provide medical assistance, whereas in the past, law enforcement would make sure the scene is secure, safe, before the FD would go in. Okay, so there's 15 protective vests and helmets that they're looking for in the budget. They're not the same as the police department, which they have more expensive, thinner body armor. And this type of body armor will not be worn on a daily basis by the fire department, by the firefighters who are driving around. The protective gear is to protect the firefighters to wear when they come to a hostile or active shooter scene, where they would have to go into the scene, okay, to provide life-saving medical assistance and rescue the injured. An example would be they would stop an artery bleed, which, as we know, a person can die 6 minutes if that artery bleed is not stopped. So I think that they made a good explanation as to why they need these 15 sets. They will be put on a handful of apparatus. And they also mentioned that we have to prepare for incidents like this, which happen in suburbs, not cities. Parkland has a 35,000 population, and Columbine has 28,000 population. So the level of expectation of response for firefighters has changed. Okay, let's see, what else? Relative to the 2 grants, we know one is for the engine and one is for 42 sets of PPE equipment. It is not known if they will receive those grants. Okay. Relative to when the grants will be, people will be notified if they receive them. There's a delay because of the shutdown. Okay, what else? They wanted to thank the members of the public for approving the engine pumper at the special town meeting. They have a committee established, which is made up of volunteers, and they did a great job speccing out to North Haven's needs the ladder truck. And so the committee will reconvene, and they will spec out this pumper engine for North Haven's needs. They're expecting to put it out to bid soon, in a few weeks, and hope to place an order within 30 days. So I wanted to bring up the generator, which is included in the chief's budget. Some residents have been suggesting that the town paid for it twice. So in other words, they received it and then they're gonna pay for it again. Well, that's not what happened. So we know that there was $9 million that the people voted for fire headquarters and the volunteer firehouses improvements. And so we did not get the generator for headquarters. So what happened? It was all about the site work and how it was grossly underestimated. It came in extraordinarily high. And so things had to be left out, changes had to be made. And one of those things that was left out was the new generator for headquarters. So what's happening now? They're using a used old generator that's too small for headquarters. So there is definitely a need for a new generator. So I would ask the residents to support the fire department and public safety. Last year, I asked the Board of Finance, when they are putting the budget together, to first consider the public's health and safety. And this year, I'm asking the same. I would ask the Board of Finance to include the two firefighters this budget and in future budgets. Okay, so we have coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I would ask the Board of Finance to include the $300,000 so the chief can purchase a used ladder truck, and to include a schedule of fire apparatus replacement. I think that's very important. I would ask the Board of Finance to include the $24,000 for the 15 bulletproof vests and helmets. Let's see. Okay. I would ask the Board of Finance to include money for PPE replacement and a schedule for PPE replacement. I would ask the Board of Finance to include the $60,000 for a new generator. Okay. I would like to highlight another fantastic save that occurred by our firefighters that occurred last week at a mobile gas station on Washington Avenue. A U.S. mail truck caught fire right next to the gas pumps and right next to the door of the store. So they saved a potential environmental hazard, and they saved lives. So that's important to mention, and we thank them for that. Okay. So next, I would like to give a public service announcement, and this is relative to an incident that happened to a friend of a friend, and it happened in North Haven, and it happened at the TJ Maxx. And so what happened was, last week, a female went into these TJ Maxx to shop. So she was doing what you do when you shop, you looking at the items, and anyway, she began to notice that a man was following her. So at first she didn't think anything of it, and then she kept going, shopping, and then she started to go from one end of the store to the other end of the store, and he just kept following her and following her. So she became uneasy, and what she did was she noticed another man that came in, and he was consulting with this first man, and they were kind of circling her, and then the second man left. So she called her father, and he said, "Stay there, I will come and pick you up." Shortly thereafter, she happened to notice a friend from her work, so she walked over to the friend and explained what was happening, and the friend was able to point the man out without her having to do so first. And then what happened was, right after the man saw her speaking with the other female, he left. So then what happened was her father was outside. She had given a description of the two men to her father. So when he pulled into the parking lot, based on her description, he was able to see the two men in the car and that they had driven over to BJ's. So at some point in time, it's not clear. She did contact the North Haven Police Department and let them know about it. But it seemed, based on her post, this was a post on Facebook that was shared, it sounded like she was home and then she made the call. So being married to a police officer for 28 years, if you feel like you're being stalked, you need to, you have to call the police. So that was the one thing that I felt that she did in a delayed manner, because they could have come in, you know what I'm saying, and at least questioned it, you know, and it just seemed like maybe they could have gone to the car and, you know, take the plate, you know what I mean, just question them, something. So basically what I wanted to say to people is to, male or female, with all, you know, we don't know what the plans for this woman was, kidnap, rape, murder, sex trafficking, we don't know what it was. But she knew something was wrong. So when you're out shopping, be super aware of your surroundings. And if possible, try and shop with someone else, if possible. Okay.
Should have got, her father or her should have got the plate number.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. People, they're in a panic and they just want to get out of the situation. So, but anyway, so let's see, what do I want to say next? Okay, so just up at the state, I think people are aware of this. There was a public hearing regarding the tolls, and that was overwhelmingly not supported, but I think it's going to happen anyway. There was also a public hearing for a House bill for the volunteer firefighters to increase the abatement, so I hope that that passes. There was also a public hearing for school regionalization. That was overwhelmingly not supported, and the sense is to let the towns do it themselves versus having a state mandate it. And also of note, Superintendent Dr. Cronin, he was asked this question about school regionalization during the Board of Ed budget workshop, and he explained that he is not in favor of that, basically due to there would be an increase in class sizes, and I think he said that there, travel distance and just things like that. So, and what else? So lastly, let's see. I wanted to remind people of the public hearing for the budget. I believe it's April 2nd. And also the annual town meeting will be on May 6th. So please come out and support the fire department. Thank you.
Ms. White, I have a couple of questions, but I think she mentioned the budget town meeting. It's not the 6th.
When is it?
Yeah, we changed it.
We had to change it.
You changed it?
Because the charter says it has to be the second Monday.
What is the date? Do we
So
know?
it's
I got the list here. I said,
the
Mike. I think that's the updated.
no, the public hearing in April. We're talking about the May budget town.
May 3rd, I think.
No, the budget town meeting was originally May 6th, right? But it was.
Yeah, the second Monday is the 3rd.
It's the 13th, and we had to change the date of the referendum,
5/13.
which was originally
The
the
referendum was
15th.
13th.
Yeah,
We're
May
changing it to the following Tuesday.
Okay. So the public hearing for the budget is it April 2nd?
Yes.
Yes,
no-
okay.
Nothing changes the
Okay.
public hearing.
So
But
now-
you mentioned the budget town meeting,
That's
May
where,
6th.
Please tell me.
That's
What's the
wrong.
date? Yes.
Because that violated the charter.
Gotcha.
May
And-
13th, Mary.
Thank you.
It's May 13th.
Okay.
And accordingly, because the budget town meeting has to be a certain number of days before the referendum also got moved to the following Tuesday.
Which is May 21st.
21st, which is, so it's Monday, May 13th, and Tuesday.
May
May
21st for the
21st.
referendum.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
No, I still had a couple of comments. You had mentioned, you started your presentation tonight with some statistics from the last fire commission meeting.
Yes.
And you mentioned that the current number of calls so far this year is more than 2014.
Yes.
but you left out, you did some selective
I gave some
reporting.
highlights. Yes.
It's actually, the number is over 70 less than last year.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that.
And what did the chief say about
That
that?
it might have had something to do with not as much snow.
Exactly.
Right, right.
And so he expects that the trend will go back up.
Right, well,
Okay.
I'm just, if we're gonna give statistics, let's
Okay.
give them all. And as far as your issue about the generator, I was one of the folks that wrote a column, I write this column you might be aware of, and I mentioned the generator in one of my columns, and I thought that it was certainly reasonable for me to mention that the taxpayers are being asked to pay for a generator now, when in fact they were asked to pay for it 6 years ago, and it never happened because of problems with the construction of the firehouses.
Site
There were-
work.
Yeah, I understand. There was a lot of, the site work at Montauk's in particular was off the charts.
Grossly underestimated.
It was estimated at 50,000, and according to Chief Landiosa, who told me
DCO.
in person, excuse me, it was over $1 million. That's
Yes.
what he told me.
So changes had to be made because
Right.
they had to stay within the $9 million
Yes.
appropriation that was voted
Or
on by
go
the
back
people.
or go back and get more funding. I mean, we did use some of our fund balance to complete that project, if I'm not mistaken, though. So, you started by saying, well, there's talk that we're being asked to pay for it twice. I am defending myself, saying I thought it was perfectly appropriate for me to point out that it was supposed to be included in a project that the town already agreed to fund. It didn't happen for lots of reasons, and now we're being asked to fund it again. I didn't see anything inappropriate or misleading about that. I thought that it was in the interest of full disclosure and transparency. So I sort of had a little hint that you were being critical of those who are saying, oh, it's being paid for twice. No, we're being asked to pay for it again because it wasn't paid for. So I just wanted to
Right,
make
it
that
was not purchased.
distinction, and I thought that
Because
it was
of the
appropriate.
grossly underestimated site work.
Right.
Other changes had to be made too, not just that, and other exclusions,
Absolutely,
not
absolutely.
just that.
The work, especially at Northeast and at West Ridge, was nowhere near the quality and the quantity that it was supposed to be. But
right.
that was the reality of the situation, but that doesn't negate the fact that it was appropriate for me to bring that up, which is what I did. Okay.
And
That-
so I brought it up because I feel that it's a public health and safety issue.
Right.
Because if you have a generator, which they have, which is old and used and too small, what if we have a power outage, which I don't know about everybody else, but I'm always having power outages. And imagine if there's a power outage on Broadway and headquarters and that generator fails.
Right.
Just imagine the public health and safy issues that would
Well,
result.
I'm not saying that we
So,
don't need it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's too bad that it came to this.
Yep.
And we did go over the 9.2 million to finish the project. We did use money from the fund balance to finish that project.
Well, we didn't have a choice.
No,
Again,
but,
out of the
okay.
control.
all right, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.